I booked the venue, covered the dinner, and even bought personalized gifts for everyone for my birthday. When I showed up, the room was empty. 2 hours later, my brother posted photos of them all bowling across town. I didn't say a word. I just sent a group text, "Good luck covering your bills without me." The next day, their messages went from jokes to begging. I never replied.
My name's David, and I'm 29 years old. This story takes place just a few months ago, but honestly, it still feels like it happened yesterday. I guess when a betrayal cuts deep enough, the timeline doesn't really matter. It just leaves a mark you can't shake. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. You know the type, the kid who made sure everyone's birthday gifts were bought, who double-checked family trip itineraries, who quietly covered the check when someone forgot their wallet. Maybe it was because I was the oldest. Maybe it was just baked into me. Either way, somewhere along the line, it became expected. And I guess I didn't mind, not at first. I liked seeing my family happy. I liked feeling useful. It wasn't until later that I realized being the responsible one in my family didn't mean being appreciated. It meant being used. My birthday was coming up, my 29th. Not exactly a milestone, but to me, it still felt important. A small checkpoint before 30. A year that had been brutally hard, losing a job, clawing my way back with freelance gigs, helping my parents cover mortgage payments when dad's hours got cut. Honestly, all I wanted was one night where I could just be David, not the emergency fund, not the fixer, not the guy solving everyone else's mess. Just me. So I decided to plan something nice. Nothing extravagant. Nothing crazy. I booked a cozy private room at this restaurant I loved. A little Italian place tucked away from the main strip. I paid the deposit myself, picked a preset menu so no one had to stress about prices, and even went the extra mile. I ordered small, personalized gifts for everyone. Little things based on inside jokes and shared memories, a custom bowling pin keychain for my brother Matt because of all the nights we spent at the lanes growing up, a delicate charm bracelet for my mom that mirrored one she'd lost years ago, a vintage vinyl for my dad that he used to play on Sundays. I wanted it to feel like a thank you as much as a celebration. I sent out the invites a month in advance, group text, calendar reminders. I even followed up the week before just to make sure everyone had the address and the time locked down. Everyone responded with thumbs ups, hearts, even a few can't wait messages. I should have known better. I should have felt the cracks even then. The day came. I was nervous, sure, but excited too. I got to the restaurant early, helped the staff arrange the gifts at each seat, triple-checked everything. The manager even commented on how thoughtful the setup was. "Your family's lucky," she said with a warm smile. I just laughed and shrugged, feeling that old familiar hope flutter in my chest. Maybe this time, it would be different. Maybe this time, they'd really show up. 7 o'clock came. I checked my phone. No new texts. No missed calls. I told myself they were just running late. It's a family tradition. After all, late to everything. 7:30. Still nothing. I laughed it off with the server saying something about traffic. 8 o'clock. The pit in my stomach started to grow. I stared at the empty chairs, at the gifts sitting like accusations in front of spotless plates. At 8:15, the manager approached, awkwardly clearing her throat. "Sir, do you want to order now? We'll need to start wrapping up the kitchen soon." I nodded numbly, thanking her, trying not to let the heat creeping up my face turn into full-blown humiliation. I packed up the gifts quietly, left a generous tip for the trouble, and walked out into the cool night air with a hollow feeling in my chest. I sat in my car for a long time, just staring at the steering wheel. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there frozen until my phone buzzed in my lap. For one heart-stopping second, I thought maybe it was them. Maybe some massive apology, some explanation, some car accident, or miscommunication. No. It was worse. My brother Matt had posted a series of photos, him, my parents, a couple of cousins, all at a bowling alley across town. Big stupid grins plastered across their faces. They tagged the post to family night. No mention of my birthday, not even a sarcastic jab, just nothing. Like, I didn't exist. My stomach twisted so hard it felt like I was going to be sick. I scrolled through the photos in a daze. There was Matt posing mid-bowl, laughing with his arm slung around our cousin Kyle. There was my mom, throwing up peace signs with a glittery pink bowling ball. My dad, red-faced and grinning at the snack counter. Like they hadn't promised they'd be with me tonight. Like they hadn't RSVP'd, hadn't hyped up how special they wanted to make it. I sat there for a few minutes, staring at the screen, the neon reflections flashing against the glass. And then in a kind of detached haze, I started adding things up. How many months I'd floated my parents' electric bill. How many times I'd slipped Matt cash when he came crying about a rough month. How often I'd driven halfway across town to help someone move, fix a fence, dog sit last minute. How easy it had been for them to push me aside when I wasn't useful. I didn't scream. I didn't slam the steering wheel. I didn't call or text some emotional essay demanding answers. No. I just opened my banking app. I moved a few things around, paused a few payments, canceled a few auto transfers. And then once everything was neat and tidy and final, I opened our family group chat. I stared at the blinking cursor for a long time, then I typed simple and cold. Good luck covering your bills without me. I hit send. I watched the little delivered check marks pop up one by one, and then I locked my phone and drove home without another thought. The next morning, the first few texts rolled in jokes mostly. My brother sent laughing emojis. My mom asked if I was still sulking about a little misunderstanding. Dad sent a photo of a bowling trophy he'd won, captioned, "Winner's Circle," like nothing was wrong. By noon, the tone had changed.
David,
"Can we talk? Seriously, can you fix the transfer? It's just a glitch. Right?
hey,
Mom's freaking out.
please call.
Dude, the mortgage bounced. What the heck?
David,
Come on. Don't be like this." The messages kept piling up. Begging, pleading, apologies that sounded more desperate than genuine, calls to my phone buzzed non-stop, vibrating off the kitchen counter like it was possessed. I didn't answer. I didn't even open the messages after a certain point. I just sat back, sipping coffee, staring out the window at the first flakes of an early snowfall, feeling empty, not victorious, not smug, just tired. So tired. And somewhere deep in my chest, a quiet voice whispered, "Maybe it's finally time to stop setting myself on fire to keep people warm." But that wasn't the end of it, not even close. The thing about pulling the plug on people who see you as a walking safety net is they don't just panic. They scramble. They start making mistakes. And in my family's case, they made some pretty spectacular ones. The next morning, around 9 a.m., I got a call from my mom's number. I didn't answer. 10 seconds later, my dad's number popped up, declined, then Matt's, then Kyle's, then my aunt's. It was like a machine gun of desperate attempts to get through. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty about ignoring them. I felt free. Every buzz of my phone was just more proof that they were finally feeling a fraction of the abandonment they'd made me sit with the night before. By noon, the group chat had exploded. Screenshots of bank statements, overdraft fees, mortgage company emails, my dad's car loan payment bounced, my mom's utilities flagged for disconnection. Matt had apparently tried to buy something at Best Buy that morning and got embarrassed at the counter when his card was declined. It was like watching dominoes fall one after the other. At 2 p.m., I got a text from my mother that, if I hadn't been so numb, might have made me laugh. "David, enough is enough. Stop being childish. Family forgives. Fix this. Family forgives. Right? Unless it's my birthday, apparently. Then family goes bowling without a second thought." I didn't reply. I just muted the thread. The thing is, they didn't know the half of it yet. Over the years, out of sheer practicality and, stupidity, I had slowly wound myself into all of their financial lives. I was the secondary contact on my parents' mortgage because my credit score was better. I was the emergency cosigner for Matt's car loan because he was getting back on his feet after that failed business venture. I had set up direct debits for little things, mom's phone bill, dad's gym membership, even the streaming services they loved because they kept forgetting and getting late fees. They didn't realize that most of those auto payments came from my account. They were like people living in a house with invisible scaffolding. They never noticed it until it was gone. The next morning, the email started. Not from my family, from the companies. Notice of cancellation. Delinquent account warning. Immediate attention required. I sat there drinking my coffee, deleting each one as it came in. By the third day, the voicemail shifted tone entirely. No more jokes. No more passive-aggressive family-first guilt trips. Now it was frantic. "David, please. Please just call me back. We didn't mean to hurt you. Son, your mother is in tears. She hasn't slept. Can't you forgive us? We're a family. Bro, listen. We messed up. Okay? Don't do this. You know they'll take the house if the payments don't go through. Please, Man. Please. And for the first time in my life, I realized something huge. Something I think I had been avoiding for a long time. They didn't love me. They loved the things I did for them. The security I brought, the way I could clean up messes. They didn't even bother pretending to fix themselves. I wasn't a son or a brother or a cousin. I was a safety net. And now they were free falling. By the end of that first week, my aunt, who had always played the peacemaker role, texted me directly a long, rambling message about how holding grudges isn't healthy and real family sticks together during hard times. She ended it with, "You're punishing everyone for one little misunderstanding. It's time to grow up, David." One little misunderstanding. Right? Because setting up an entire birthday dinner, paying for everything, getting excited like a fool, and then sitting alone for hours while your family laughs and bowls and forgets you even exist, that's just a tiny little hiccup. No big deal. At that point, something inside me, something old and raw and heavy, snapped into place like a final puzzle piece. I realized there was no apology coming, not a real one anyway. Just excuses. Just manipulations. Just more demands disguised as healing or family values. Still, I stayed silent. That Friday night, I went out by myself, something I hadn't done in years. I wandered into a bookstore, bought myself a new novel, grabbed a latte from a quiet cafe, and sat on a bench downtown reading under the street lights. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't loud, but it was peaceful. For once, I wasn't checking my phone every 5 minutes. I wasn't wondering who needed me or what bill needed paying. I was just me. Meanwhile, back at my parents' house, the panic was reaching a boiling point. Apparently, the mortgage company had called them directly demanding payment on the past due balance. Dad had tried to bluff his way through it, but when they ran the numbers and saw the auto debits had stopped, they weren't sympathetic. Matt's car was officially flagged for repossession. Mom's utilities were scheduled to shut off Monday morning if no payment was received. And the worst part? They still hadn't told the rest of the extended family what was happening. Too proud, too embarrassed. So from the outside, everything looked normal until it didn't. Saturday morning, I got a text from my cousin, Jenna, one of the few family members I actually liked. She wasn't part of the bowling disaster, but apparently, she had caught wind that something big was going on. "Hey, David. I don't know what's happening, but just know I'm here if you need anything. You didn't deserve whatever they did." That almost broke me. Almost. But I knew I had to see this through. Because what was coming next, well, let's just say their problems were about to get a whole lot worse. Sunday morning, I woke up to a knock at my door. Not a text, not a call, a knock loud, persistent, desperate. For a second, I thought about ignoring it, just pulling the blanket over my head and letting them pound away until they gave up. But curiosity got the better of me. I padded over to the window and peeked through the blinds. It was my dad, and he didn't look angry. He looked small, deflated. His shoulders were hunched against the cold. His hands stuffed deep in the pockets of his worn-out jacket. He shuffled from foot to foot like a teenager caught outside after curfew. I didn't rush to open the door. I made him wait, just like I had waited in that restaurant, sitting alone at a table set for ghosts. Finally, I cracked the door open just a few inches, enough to look him in the eye without inviting him in. "David," he said, voice hoarse. "Can we talk?" I leaned against the frame. "Talk about what?" He flinched at my tone, but forced a brittle smile. "About family, about fixing things." I stared at him for a long moment. This man who hadn't even sent a happy birthday text standing here now because the bank account was dry, the mortgage company was calling, and his carefully balanced house of cards was collapsing around him. Funny how family only mattered when they needed saving. "I don't think there's anything left to fix," I said calmly. He blinked, clearly thrown off. He opened his mouth, closed it again, then finally found words. "We made a mistake. We know that. Your mother's sick over it. Matt too. They didn't mean to hurt you. They thought it would be funny. A surprise. Bowling first, then meet you later. It got out of hand." I raised an eyebrow. "You thought standing me up for 2 hours was a surprise?" He had the decency to look ashamed. "We messed up," he said, voice cracking. "But you're punishing everyone. Punishing everyone." There it was again, as if I was the one who started this. I thought about slamming the door in his face, but a different idea struck me, a colder one. "All right," I said slowly. "You want to talk about fixing things? Fine." His eyes lit up with cautious hope. "First, admit it." I said, "Right now, you use me. All of you. He stiffened.
David, come on.
No. I cut him off sharply. Say it out loud. No spin. No guilt trips. Just the truth. He hesitated, shifting uncomfortably. I waited. I wasn't giving him an inch. Finally, he muttered barely above a whisper. We depended on you too much. I shook my head. Not good enough. Say it properly. He looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. His fists clenched in his jacket pockets. For a second, I thought he might just turn and leave, but instead, he swallowed hard and forced the words out. We used to, David. We took you for granted. I nodded almost clinically. Good. Step 1 done. He sagged with relief. So you'll help? I smiled thinly. Oh, no. I'm not helping. Step 1 was just admitting it. Step 2 is living with it. I pushed the door closed, slow and deliberate, right in his stunned face. I didn't slam it. I didn't scream. I just ended it clean and final. The moment the latch clicked, a weight lifted off my chest when I hadn't even realized I was carrying. I leaned my forehead against the door and took a deep, shaky breath. For the first time in years, I felt free. Of course, the fallout didn't stop there. Monday morning rolled around, and with it, a small but important detail my family had overlooked. My name wasn't just tied to their bills. It was tied to their paperwork. The mortgage? I was the cosigner. The loan companies? They have my contact info too. And when payments stopped, so did the automatic shielding I built for them, forwarding notices, intercepting calls, smoothing over late fees. Without me there to run interference, everything slammed straight into them. By Tuesday, my mom's electricity was cut off. By Wednesday, Matt's car was repossessed right out of the driveway in front of the neighbors. By Thursday, my parents' mortgage lender officially filed for foreclosure proceedings. And the beautiful, poetic irony? Because they've been so dependent on me for so long, they didn't even know how to start fixing it. They had no idea how to set up payment plans, how to negotiate extensions, how to file hardship applications. All the things I used to quietly handle in the background while they pretended it was magic. I watched it all unfold from a distance. Jenna keeping me updated with whispered phone calls and felt nothing. No guilt. No second thoughts. Just a quiet, steady sense of justice. They could have chosen differently. They could have treated me like family instead of a safety net with a heartbeat. They made their bed. Now they could lie in it. Friday evening, I got one last voicemail from Matt this time. His voice was ragged, desperate.
David,
please, man. They're talking about selling the house. Mom's sick. Dad's drinking again. We're falling apart. You've made your point. Okay? We're sorry. Just call me back. Please. I'll do anything. Anything. It was almost funny how quickly your just being dramatic turned into you'll do anything, but it was too late. I had already made peace with it with them. They had chosen to make me feel invisible when I needed the most. Now they could find out how invisible felt. And as for me, I had my own life to build, a better one. One where my worth wasn't measured by what I could give, where my birthday didn't come with terms and conditions, where being family wasn't just a word people used to guilt you when the money ran dry. That night, as the first real snow of winter blanketed the streets, I sat by the window with a cup of tea, watching the world turn white and silent. And for the first time in years, the silence didn't feel lonely. It felt like peace. Weeks passed. At first, after Matt's voicemail, I wondered if they would show up again. Maybe on my doorstep. Maybe at my work. It would be exactly their style, making a scene, playing the wounded martyrs, throwing themselves at my feet just long enough to get what they needed, but they didn't. Instead, the silence stretched on thick, tense, brittle. Through Jenna, I heard bits and pieces enough to paint a full picture. Without my financial scaffolding, the house slipped faster than they could react. The foreclosure notice was posted right on their front door, bright yellow and impossible to ignore. Neighbors started whispering. Church friends stopped visiting. Even some of the extended family, the ones who had always nodded along while my parents bragged about how close-knit we were, started pulling away once they realized the cracks were showing, and there were cracks everywhere. Mom's utilities had been restored temporarily. She'd scraped together enough with some emergency funds she begged from relatives, but it wasn't enough. She was selling furniture piece by piece on Facebook Marketplace just to keep the lights on. Dad tried to pick up extra shifts at his job, but it was too late. His reputation, once solid, had started slipping when the foreclosure rumors spread. Customers didn't want to trust someone who couldn't even manage his own home. His hours were cut even further. Matt? He spiraled. Without a car, he lost his main source of income, the gig jobs he hopped between to make ends meet. He crashed on couches for a while, then finally moved into the crumbling house with my parents, all of them clinging to each other in a sinking ship. It would have been easy to feel sorry for them. Easy. If I didn't have the clear, unshakable memory of sitting alone at that restaurant table, staring at untouched plates and gifts carefully picked for people who had decided I didn't matter. I went back to therapy, a different therapist this time, someone who specialized in family dynamics and boundaries. She helped me dig into the rot, all the years of quiet expectation, all the unspoken rules I had followed out of loyalty, guilt, fear of abandonment. She showed me that I hadn't been selfish for stepping away. I had been surviving. And little by little, I built something new. I moved out of the small apartment where I'd spent so many nights waiting for emergency calls from them. I found a place on the edge of the city, a modest condo with huge windows that overlooked the park. I started saying no without apology, to extra shifts I didn't want, to friends who only called when they needed something, to old habits that kept me small. My birthday came and went quietly the next year. No grand party. No elaborate dinner. I spent it hiking through the woods with Jenna, one of the few people who had stood by me without conditions, and a few new friends I had made through a local book club. At the top of a ridge, looking out over a wide expanse of trees touched gold by the setting sun, Jenna handed me a small gift, just a simple notebook with a leather cover. On the first page, she had written, "You deserve better. You still do. Here's to writing your own story from now on." I laughed. I cried a little too, but it wasn't the kind of crying that leaves you hollow. It was cleansing like rain after a drought. The final nail in the coffin of my old life came 6 months after that disastrous birthday. I was at work when my phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from the mortgage company. I almost didn't open it. I had trained myself not to care, but curiosity tugged at me. I clicked. The house had been auctioned off, sold to a young couple who planned to gut it and start over. My parents had moved into a small rental apartment on the outskirts of town. No porch swing. No backyard BBQs. No big family holidays. Just a 2-bedroom box with peeling linoleum floors and broken mini blinds. Matt, last I heard, he was working nights at a gas station. Minimum wage. No car. No credit. No fallback. I should have felt victorious, maybe even vindicated. But the truth was, I just felt done. Their downfall wasn't a triumph. It wasn't a trophy I wanted to hang on my wall. It was a reminder of the cost of letting people treat you like an afterthought and a promise to myself that I would never let it happen again. About a year after the collapse, I got one last message from my mother. A simple email, no subject line. Inside, just a few lines. "We know we hurt you. We're sorry. We lost everything. We lost you. We understand if you never want to hear from us again. But if you ever do, the door's open. No guilt trips. No begging. No manipulation. Just acknowledgement." It should have felt satisfying. It didn't. I didn't reply. Not out of hatred, not out of spite, but because the chapter was closed. Some things, once broken, don't go back together the same way. Some bridges, once burned, aren't meant to be rebuilt. And sometimes, moving forward means accepting that the apology you needed years ago, the love you deserved all along, may never come the way you dreamed. But that's okay because you find new dreams. New family, the kind you build from scratch, not the kind you're born into. New places where you're wanted for who you are, not for what you can give. New birthdays that are quiet but genuine. New peace that doesn't ask you to pay for it with pieces of yourself. Today, when I think about that empty restaurant table, it doesn't sting the way it used to. It feels like a crossroads, a place where I sat alone, yes, but also where I chose myself for the first time in my life. And honestly, that's a pretty amazing thing to celebrate, not just on my birthday, but every single day after.